Okay, welcome to week 2, module 1 of World at War. We're deep into World War I by now. Last week we learned about the alliance system and the causes of World War I and how the alliances all kicked in. And so by the end of June 1914, we had the two sides, the Central Powers and the Central Entente, or the Triple Entente, all ready to go against each other. And so we kind of want to get the war started today, and we'll get the two sides fighting each other. We'll see how that goes at the beginning, and then turn you over to a couple specific battles to kind of analyze the impact that the war had on the people involved. So I want to make sure that you understand the alliance system and how that all kicked in, with Russia, France, and England fighting on one side, and Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey, which we'll get to in our next session, on the other side. And so all that kicked in, and both sides mobilized their forces on the borders, mainly of Germany, on both the Western Front and the Eastern Front. And Germany came up with this great plan of how they were going to win the war. It was known as the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan. You can look that up if you want to get more details, but the plan was pretty simple. Germany was going to take out France first. Got that? That was step 1. Step 2, take out Russia. It's as simple as that. And it always amazes me to think that there were smart people who were sitting around a room and they were like, all right, do we have a plan to win this thing? And the plan simply was take out France, then take out Russia. So that was the plan, the Schlieffen Plan. So they were trying to figure out the best way to get into France. And instead of going right from Germany across the border into France, they decided to go up through Belgium, poor little Belgium. And so Germany was by far the most advanced military out there. They had the best weapons and everything. And so they rolled into Belgium. They outnumbered the Belgians 10-1. Belgium had nothing. They were an army of the previous century, and they had horses and things trying to fight against the highly mobilized army of the Germans. But yet they tried to stop the Germans. In fact, their strategy was to go out, attack the Germans, and then run back to these huge fortresses that they had built, concrete fortresses, feet thick of walls, so that they thought they would be protected. But if you remember, the Germans had spent a lot of money on research and development of their military. And one of the things that they had devised was a way to get through these huge fortresses of the Belgians. And this was a huge gun called Big Bertha. Big Bertha shot 1-ton shells from miles away and demolished anything in its way. And so here go the Belgians, and they attack the Germans, and then they rush back to their fortresses, and they hear this thing falling from the sky, and it's these 1-ton shells from Big Bertha. And they demolish these concrete fortresses. So the Belgian army is taken care of pretty quickly, and the German army is marching through Belgium, but the Belgian citizens stood up and were like, we're not letting you walk here, just walk through our country. And so these citizen snipers would get up in the rooftops and in the windows and all that and snipe down on the German soldiers, killing them as they walked through the villages and the towns of Belgium. Well, the Germans had had enough of this, and so they decided that they were going to kill 10 Belgians for every German soldier killed. Now, it sounds like a pretty extreme threat, but the Germans made good on those threats. And the atrocities that the German army inflicted on the Belgian population started this huge propaganda campaign against the Germans. It became known as Poor Little Belgium. And people around the world started rallying to support the Belgian people. And some of these stories just got crazy. Things like roasting babies' feet and raping of the Belgian women. And I'm sure some of that took place, but not anywhere near what the propaganda made it seem like. And so it was really the first organized military wartime propaganda campaign. Became known as Poor Little Belgium. But certainly the Belgian people couldn't stop the German army either. And so they rolled into France as well. Luckily, though, by this time, the French army kind of realized what was happening because they were still expecting an attack straight across the German border. When they realized that the attack was coming from the north, they sent everyone they had as fast as they could up to meet this incoming German army. In fact, there were times where the French soldiers would be taking taxi cabs to the front because there just wasn't enough stuff and the French weren't really that prepared. But they zip up there, and the first major battle between the French and the Germans was called the Battle of the Marne, M-A-R-N-E, M-A-R-N-E, the Battle of the Marne. 1 million people killed, horrible battle. I shouldn't say that. I don't know if 1 million people were killed at that battle, but it will get to that point later on in the war. But the Battle of the Marne lasts 2 or 3 days. And basically what happens is the French army, while not defeating the Germans, stopped their advance. And both armies kind of dug in after the Battle of the Marne. And so I'll never really ask you about the details of the Battle of the Marne, but what I want you to know is the outcomes of it. And the outcomes is that both armies dug in to the ground so that they wouldn't die. And this begins what we call trench warfare. Miles and miles of trenches dug by both armies, and they just dig into the ground and try to kill each other from there, but there's not a lot of movement. And so when no side is winning the war, we call that stalemate, when no one is winning the war. And so those are 2 outcomes of the Battle of the Marne, trench warfare and stalemate. And then, of course, the Schlieffen Plan is ruined. The point was to get France out of the war quickly, and they didn't do that. And so the Germans really had no plan to win the war after that. Actually, no one had a plan to win the war after that. They just kind of dug in, and for 3 years we're in stalemate. We're just shooting guns at each other, trying to kick each other out of the trenches, but it never works. So what you're going to be doing today is reading about a couple other battles. There's the Battle of the Somme that takes place between the British and the Germans. And what I want you to focus on is the movie that the British government made about the Battle of the Somme, and look at the impact that it had on the people of England. And then I want you to read about the Battle of Verdun, which is between the French and the Germans. I want you to really look at the new strategy that the Germans use at the Battle of Verdun. And that strategy is called attrition. And I'm sure you'll read about this, but attrition simply means kill as many people as you can. And so we go from a strategy called the Schlieffen Plan, which was meant to actually win the war, and then we digress into the strategy of attrition, which simply means kill as many people as you can. And I think that is a good indication of how horrible this war and every war is, where you get to the point where the simple goal is to kill as many human beings as possible. And we see that in World War I at the Battle of Verdun. So do those readings, answer those questions, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.